Imagine you have a Looker dashboard filled with useful data and insights. Many of your users will find the dashboard helpful and use it often. But your users spend most of their time on existing applications and workflows. How can your dashboard reach your users in their current context? Well, embed the dashboard into your existing applications so your user can act on data insights without leaving their app or disrupting their workflows. Hi! Welcome to our video series on Embedding Looker. I'm Jeremy, a developer relations engineer at Looker. In this video, we will explore the multiple ways you can embed your Looker content via iframes. There are three options for embedding via iframe: private embedding, SSO single sign-on embedding, and SSO embedding with the Embed SDK. Let's do a quick overview of each iframe embedding option and how your host application can interact and communicate with your iframe. By the way, a quick knowledge check. For the rest of this video, we assume you have a basic knowledge of JavaScript and the iframe HTML element. First, let's introduce you to the private embedding option. Let's look at your host application's DOM. You create an iframe inside the DOM. Then, you take a modified URL of your Looker content and set it on your iframe source attribute. And now, you have embedded Looker content in your iframe. Keep in mind, for this option, your user must log into Looker via your admin's chosen authentication mechanism. The user's Looker account must have the right permissions to access the embedded content. So, consider private embedding if you need a quick and easy embedding option, and your user can log into your Looker instance. But what if you want your host application to control user authentication and authorization? For example, your user authenticates with an identity provider connected to your host application, all separate from your Looker instance. Then, try out our SSO embedding option. Again, you create an iframe in your host application, but this time, you point the iframe source attribute to a unique one-time use URL that you must generate for each embed user session. This one-time use URL sets the content access permissions of the session. The URL logs in your user as an existing Looker embed user or creates a new one with the content access permissions. Consider the SSO embedding option if your host application controls user authentication and authorization. Next, let's look at the SSO embedding with the Embed SDK option. This is our recommended embedding option. It's the same as the previously mentioned SSO embedding option. However, your host application does not directly manage the iframe. Instead, your host application calls the JavaScript Embed SDK to create and manage the iframe. Just like I described for the previous SSO embedding option, you must still generate a unique URL for every embed user session. But the Embed SDK with our accompanying code samples partly automates the URL generation and manages the iframe for you. We recommend this option the most because of the Embed SDK's convenient JavaScript API and ease of use. Lastly, let's look at how your host application can communicate with your iframe to make your embedded content more interactive. Your iframe and host application can communicate with each other with all the previous embedding options. Your iframe emits an event when its state changes. For example, when a dashboard finishes loading. Your host application can listen to these events and react accordingly. Also, your host application can send messages to the iframe to change the iframe state, like telling the iframe to load a new dashboard. If you use the Embed SDK, then your host application calls the SDK's JavaScript API to listen to events and send messages to the iframe. But if you do not use the Embed SDK, then your host application will use the window interface to listen to events and send messages to the iframe. In conclusion, you can embed Looker content in an iframe in multiple ways depending on your needs. And your host application can interact with the iframe. If you don't know where to start, we recommend getting started with private embedding. because it is our simplest embedding option. And then we recommend you get started with the SSO embedding with the Embed SDK to help you get more familiar with Embedding Looker. And with that, you will soon be an expert in Embedding Looker. So check out our developer portal, linked in the description below, and get started embedding your Looker content. Also, stay tuned for future videos in this series where we'll walk you through how to embed Looker in more detail. See you next time!